The third person we've asked is Ivona.
Thank you, Carol and Ted Sig, for this wonderful event and inviting me. And I'm really bad at keeping the time. And when I came to the to the talk class, which was pretty much last year, that was the end of term, and I often fall sick at the end of the term, which kind of gives you an idea how intense it can be. But today I'm not. Maybe the extra iron and vitamin D helped. But I've prepared some notes because I just wanted to make sure that I capture everything that I wanted. So if I look down a little bit, that's just to keep me on my track. So I wanted to, since it is the festive season ahead of us, I wanted, and that festive season is to be joyous. I wanted to focus on joy in our professional practice. But before I begin, I just wanted to say that I am particularly honored being among the two such prominent voices in EAP, two great women, and I've got your books and they've helped me over the years. And they've helped many others too. So thank you to Owen and thank you to Bea. Wonderful, wonderful books. So back to joy. That was joy for me to read them, but back to the story. So have you ever been excited about a class you're going to teach or a scholarship project you're going to do, and that just popped to your head when you were gardening or going for a walk, or a collaboration with a colleague that you know will help you grow professionally or personally too? All too often we talk about emotions as sort of indicators of barriers and structural inequalities um, and frustrations in our practice. And certainly these are important conversations, and I engaged with them too. But today I want to focus on a different different focus, and the focus will be on joy, excitement, and the F word, fun. Now, I made a mistake for the first time a while back now of using the word fun when talking about teaching at university. Now, I got the looks of horror and disbelief from the so-called content colleagues. They quickly asked me what I taught, and upon hearing English for academic practices, they asked no further questions. I've never felt so belittled and embarrassed in my life. I didn't mention the word fun or talk openly about enjoying teaching and teaching being exciting for many years, as this was and often still is seen with suspicion. Yet more often than not, teaching is fun for me. I get to speak to interesting people. I see them learn and I see them grow. What's not to love? But somehow we are not supposed to talk about joy or fun or excitement or love in our work. But then again, why not? If you ever felt belittled or for speaking with enthusiasm about your teaching, or made feel like you belong to a language school or a primary school, but certainly not higher education, I bring you as a gift the words of magnificent and inspiring educator Bell Hooks. I'm going to quote from Teaching to Transgress, 1994. Page 7. The idea that learning should be exciting, sometimes even fun, was the subject of critical discussion by educators writing about pedagogical practices in grade schools, sometimes even high schools. But there seemed to be no interest among either traditional or radical educators in discussing the role of excitement in higher education. Excitement in higher education was viewed as potentially disruptive of the atmosphere of seriousness assumed to be essential in the learning process. To enter classroom settings in colleges and universities with the will to share the desire to encourage excitement was to transgress. However, critical reflection on my experience as a student in unexciting classrooms enabled me not only to imagine that classrooms could be exciting, but that this excitement could coexist with and even stimulate serious intellectual and or academic engagement. In her book, the one and only Teaching to Transgress, yellow cover, who teaches us that exciting learning engages both the whole person, the student and the teacher, the body, mind, and the spirit. It requires mutual participation, vulnerability, respect, and care. But in return, it offers deep learning and transformation for everyone involved. And we as teachers know that students touch us as professionals and often as people too. To say otherwise would just simply be untrue. Let me give you an example of a joyous practice that I recently I thought about last night. I teach on a third year undergraduate TESOL course, and it's a gentle introduction to teaching practice, and it has 2 sessions on contemporary issues in ELT. I teach one of them. And in the last 3 years, so ever since I joined the course, I invited my colleagues, Jason Hall, to teach one of that session with me. We talk about circles of privilege and the diversity or lack of it in ELT materials. And every year, the session is different and it is better. We experiment, we have fun, we learn from each other and the students. We introduce games, we have personal narratives, and it certainly does not stop us from critically interrogating ELT materials and grand narratives behind them. We open up to students and they reciprocate, right? Students love it, I love it, Jason loves it. It's a pleasure to teach and a joy to experience. And this year, the students asked if we would consider opening up a new course on the contemporary issues for the full term. So I'd like to finish, because it is long now, with the words of Bell Hooks again. She introduces her book, which I believe we should all have in our bookcases. And she says as follows: in this book, I want to share insights, strategies, and critical reflections on pedagogical practice. Hopeful and exuberant, they convey the pleasure and joy I experience teaching. These essays are celebratory, to emphasize that the pleasure of teaching is an act of resistance, countering the overwhelming boredom and interest and apathy that so often characterize the way professors and the students feel about teaching and learning and about classroom experience. I wish us all a wonderful festive time, and I hope that we will we'll draw from Bell Hooks, and we begin 2026 joyfully and critically transgressing our teaching practices to include excitement and maybe even fun.
How wonderful. Both in terms of engagement and learning and involving learners, and also entirely topical for joy. Joy is Christmas. That's just wonderful, Ivana. It's really inspiring. And I know the course that example you were talking about as well. And there is so much about the mind and body, isn't there? And the interaction and effective filters and engagement and enjoyment, but it doesn't, depending on what you do, it doesn't have to stop depth and critical engagement at all, and can, yeah, people remember how you make them feel, don't they? And that can open you up to being able to learn and engage. They were absolutely just wonderful. Don't know what to say. Before we move on, though, has anyone got any questions? Sorry, I didn't tell B and Ivana about this. It just occurred to me. If anyone got any questions they'd like to ask B or Owen or Ivana about what they've said, just stick your hand up. Or comments.
Actually, Carol, I've got a question for Ivana. Well, it's not a question, but it's a comment, and to agree with her that the fun in the language. We used to say in EAP Essentials that ELT teachers sometimes leave their good communicative practices and their fun activities at the classroom door because they think they're doing something serious, and that just isn't true. And we were always trying to bring humour into our practice. But a couple of things I would say: lecturers have to be interested in teaching in order to bring fun into their classrooms, and often they're not. They're too busy worried about their research. So they don't, I've met some really inspired subject teachers who do make things really fun. And then EAP teachers have to feel a real confidence to be able to say, I can do this through humour, I can do this through interaction, through fun, and it's very difficult. So there is that teacher training aspect to it, that you need, first of all, you need engagement, and then you need confidence to be able to do those things in a classroom.
Yeah. completely. Heather, I can see your hand up. I'll do Heather first and then Stella.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, everything Ivana said resonated completely. I've had the same experience at work where it's like, oh, you want to have fun in classes. You know, how very dare you? This is EAP. And people kind of take it very seriously. Um, but the thing I wanted to say was that's my book. That would have been my book to bring, would have been teaching to transgress. It's like read chapter one, read chapter one. If you don't read anything else, it's on our list this year. I'm going to draw on it very heavily from for induction. And I've been trying to get everybody on the team to read it. So anyway, thank you, Ioana.
Yeah. Thank you, Heather. Stella?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to Ivana's point about fun. And I think, I mean, I certainly get that from building the team. You know, you're like I always say to my students, we're a team. I'm just here to steer the ship. And the banter that, you know, you can get going in a classroom is amazing. And it just makes the time go very, very quickly. You know, I've moved from a university environment to an environment where we're big on engagement with the students. And it's quite an interesting exercise because there are all these different methods. But I mean, the feedback I get from students is they just love the interaction between themselves. And I think that's very much, you know, in any training session or any teaching that you're doing, I think that's, you know, that's one of the biggest things that you can do is actually, you know, get them working well together and building relationships with each other. And you know, community building, it's absolutely, you know, forget what you're teaching them. It's their relationship with each other, I think, is really important to me because then whatever content you're doing, you know, they'll find their own ways of making it interesting. Um, you know, so yeah, that resonated with me. And certainly as well, I remember one lecturer, journalism lecturer who I worked with, kind of talked about EAP being the tail wagging the dog, which was the most patronizing comment ever. And it ended up being that I noticed certainly when I worked out in China that the EAP aspect to it ended up driving the course. It became one of the most important elements. So, you know, he can eat that tail as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you.
If I may,